Welcome to the MUK podcast. I'm Rob Weaver. As ever, I'm joined by my host with the most, Tom Marvin.
How's it going, Rob?
Good, thanks, Tom. How are you?
I'm all right.
Now, today we have a really special guest with us. None other than Josh Bryceland. Hi, Josh.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what you've been up to in the past and probably more importantly, what you're going to be doing in the future. Because it all sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, this year's been a bit of a turning point for me, getting back on my big rig and doing hardline, etc. So it's relit a bit of a fire and yeah, we'll see. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, haven't we?
We have.
We've got a whole Google Doc full of things to talk about today. So
we do indeed. Do you want to start us off then, Tom?
Yeah, well, should we go back to the beginning, I guess. 2008, World Junior Champion. Pretty big thing to sort of kick off a career in some respects. I guess you were racing beforehand. You said you started when you were, 13, 14?
Yeah, I actually started downhill racing when I was 10, which was 2 years earlier than I was supposed to be racing.
How'd you get away with that?
Dad just said I was born in 88 rather than 90 for 2 years. And I was in juvenile for 4 years.
No one noticed.
No one noticed, weirdly. But I was like so far down my results. Wasn't, it took me a few years. Mm-hmm. I was tiny. I was quite a late developer. And I was like racing Brendan, who was like a bloke already at 14. It was crazy.
It was mad seeing you back then. It was mad because, I'm not big. And seeing someone else that I could say, oh, wow, he's genuinely really small. So... Because you were skinny and short, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
There's podium pictures of me next to Sam Dale and Joe Smith, and I'm on the top, but I'm as tall as them. Sam's in like third, and he's the same height, but full set bloke. Mm-hmm. I was a twiglet.
So you did a few of the NPS's National Point Series.
Yeah, I think that was in my second year of racing when I was still too young. And then, so by the first year I should have actually been racing, I was already 2 seasons deep into my career.
Quite experienced, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, realistically.
Yeah.
But then, Danny was kind of doing the same thing as well.
So just to add a bit of colour in, who were you sort of competing against regularly?
Rory Cunningham.
Yeah. Who's now who kind of like chief delegate for Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah,
doing all the
and fairly well decorated in his career. He was junior world champion in Fort Bill. That's it. And then, Sam Dale's been there from the beginning. We're still close friends. Skipping forward to world champs in 08, Remy Tirion was second with a crash. Huh. He would have probably beat me. He's still racing. He had an amazing ride in Leger, and his career's had its ups and downs, but he's still there. Yeah.
So you've done like Remy Tirion, 2008. You were racing against him. He crashed. He's still podium him Leger like last week. So
and Danny is having a great season. I know it was like a bit of a up in the air off season for him.
He's back,
but Ben, I've always like watching a few different people's careers, like. In adversity, it brings out the best in you almost, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Like when you've got to really dig in and find that sort of thing. So I've been enjoying watching all that stuff more than ever. Yeah, I really have.
Oh, that's cool.
I guess like you've been, if you started 2008 as a world champ, that's 16 years ago. So you've been sort of like a big name for quite a long time. So you will have seen those sort of guys, some guys starting from after that and already finishing the careers. So you've seen, almost lifespans of racing careers in that time.
Yeah, and I think like with the new layout of the racing, it's brought like a new interest, seeing who makes it into semis and stuff.
Yeah, is
like exciting for me. Mm-hmm. And you see the old faces and you think, amazing, Marin, I've done it. And, it's only in getting into the top 30. It doesn't... Back in the day, I mean, if you're outside the top 30, you felt like, it was I've not had a great day at all. But now
you're in the finals,
so
right?
Deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I don't think we should underplay just how much you achieved as well, though. Because... And I suppose it brings me on to my next question as well. But, you'd had such a successful career. and you were almost unbeatable in 2014. It was like you'd watch you start a race run, be like, oh, is he on pace? He looks like he's just super chill, just cruising. And you see the first split, and he's like, oh my god, he's smoking everyone. And that year, it was like you couldn't, excuse the pun, put a foot wrong. Obviously, until world champs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you still ended up on the podium, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't make it.
Yeah,
They asked me if I wanted to go on. But I was in the ambulance. Like, no, take me to hospital.
Wheeled you on the gurney.
But then you still made a comeback, still winning races in 2015, and you were still racing through 2016 as well, right? World Cups.
Yeah, I don't know what changed in 2016. I think it was maybe. Well, I think, to be honest, something mentally inside, something mentally changed after the big injury, and I think it was to do with like achieving that lifelong goal of World Cup overall. And men have, you hear it a lot with athletes who achieve something big, then there's this big slump afterwards because it's like, I've got to this point, now what? Kind of thing.
You've been doing it for a long time.
I've been doing it for a very long time, and then pair that with an injury, which is like, I didn't get an off-season that year because rehab started immediately. So physio was daily. I was going to Harrison Ross and like going the whole 9 yards on like not letting any muscle wastage, and just grafted all winter. Then went into 2015 and managed to get back. I think I got a 5th overall, but had a race win in St. Anne when a few people had issues and whatnot. And then, by 2016, I think I was just burnt out of it all. It was like, I'm still here, but I don't want to be doing it. And I remember having this really weird moment when I came home from Fort William. Dad was like, how was your weekend? And I was like, I just didn't want to race down that hill. It was so weird. And like, I love riding my bike, and I have always loved riding my bike, but I think it was just like being in that intense environment, and starting so young, and having like such great mentorship from like Andy Kiffin and Steve Peake from such a young age. But I was a pro from like 15. I wasn't professional, but I was trying to behave as much as I could like one, and doing all the things. So it like, my actual, I was burnt out.
Did you feel like
totally burnt out?
You kind of missed out a bit on that sort of growing up phase?
I think so. Okay. And I think that's what I needed to do, and that was kind of like my rebellion. And when I went to Cannondale, I was like, rejected all of like the downhill, or anything to do with being against a clock on a mountain bike. I was like, I'm just going to go over there and ride on that curb. Or ride up that tree and just do the opposite of what I've done my whole career. And I just needed them few years almost just to like decompress and be a kid and experiment with things which maybe we won't talk about.
Did you find sort of in the racing scene then you didn't have that a little bit of freedom at all? Then
I did. I totally did. I'd blow out after every race. I mean, we lived in a great era of racing. I do feel like everyone was at the party on the Sunday night, and it was a great time. Like,
pretty wild.
So good. I used to love it. I'd be like, these guys are all still my heroes, and we're just out here just hugging each other or wrestling or being ridiculous. And then next weekend we'll be serious and we'll be nodding at each other but racing like we mean it. And it was mint. It was mint, but still I still got burnt out. It's intense.
So was there a lot of pressure in that regard because you were sort of surrounded by some of the best, if not the best riders of all time, and you were potentially seen to be the next Greg or Steve?
Yeah, but I mean, there was definitely that, but also there was just like the expectation people had of my results and where my riding was at during that 16 season. I felt like there was so much going on in my head which had no relevance to being the fastest guy down the hill, but I was also like on this bit of a wanting to not waste things, and I saw, you know, like how much you consume as a team, and brand new this, brand new that, smashing through wheels, and you know, that's all part of a process. And especially as a younger rider, you're not as neat on your bike and whatever. And I remember having a run in Lenzerheide, and it felt beautiful. I was like, I have just caressed that mountain with my bicycle, and loved every minute of it. And I came across the line, and they were like, disappointing run for Josh, 15th position. And I'm like, I had a mint time. That was so not disappointing. I'm like, really enjoyed that. But the expectation was so high. It was like taken away from my performance because it didn't fit into these brackets. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, that was so mint, but it wasn't like that crazy edge pushing. You know, I was just back from pushing my limits. I was just riding smooth.
And enjoying it.
Yeah, and enjoying it. And then you're at a race at the end of the day. You're not there to be, you know. So I was like, I need to change this.
Wow, okay. So I guess we need to move forward then, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you did after that 2016 season. How did you feel your time? Because you're still a pro rider, right?
Yeah. Well, I had a really, actually, mint couple of years under Alan Cook, who was heading the EWS program at the time, which we ended up doing like Andes Pacifico, and a load of these trans style races where you go from A to B on the A to B to C to D with the tents,
camping
or
every
however
night.
you did it. And like then for me that was the purest form of racing, because you're racing blind down stuff you've never known. You're just reading the terrain and camping and And the EWS actually I did find really fun, but we were sort of, them 2 years we were hammering it. We were like filming content for the 50-1 channel. We were racing the EWS, racing that style of races as well. And I didn't really have the time to train, and I didn't want to train, or the inclination to train to be an EWS racer. But just doing the EWS, I watched like my physiology changing from doing the gym and racing downhill sprints, etc., to just, I just totally leaned off, and like I could ride for all day. But my sprints, my legs just didn't have a sprint in them, you know. It was mad watching that physiology change. But then it wasn't, I had an amazing couple of years and a really nice team with Mark Scott, Yargo, Crunk, Alexander McGuinness, Luce. We just had such a mint thing going. And Craig Evans was along with us too for a few of them. And then still just wasn't enough of a change. I was like, I'm still racing bikes and I still just want to like totally get away from that for a bit. And then that's when the Cannondale gig came around. And Nick was just like, freedom is yours.
So there's no pressure to race?
Nothing. He was just like, you just do you.
Yeah.
You've got this budget each to travel. You can pile it all together and go together. You can do your own things. Because it was me, Sam Hockenall, still is, Sam Coffino, and Max Nerka. So it was 4 of us, and we're just like, right, what's our dream year?
I was going to say, where do you even start if you're given like a pile of money? I remember when Brendan Fairclough was on.
Yeah,
and he got that cash and he blew through it in about 6 months. He came and stayed with us because he'd run out of cash.
Really? Standard.
Yeah.
That was quite early in Brendan's career, wasn't it?
Yes.
And for me, I'm like in my mid-20s to late 20s by now. Yeah, I was 28, 29.
Okay.
So I'm like a bit more head screwed on, and I was like, we just designed a mega year. We went to Europe twice in my van. Bit of hotels where we could, bit of camping. Then we went to America in a camper van and the whole East Coast, and went back to America. I did America twice. We just did so much.
So as a pro, how did it must have been so different for just being on this, I guess, like prescribed schedule where someone else is sorting all your travel. All you need to do is turn up and race.
Yeah.
And now you're shaping everything.
Yeah, from like booking my flights to like we were editing my videos as we're driving along in my camper, like place to place, like just dumping my footage, super low quality, but like we were loving it. We had our little system where each person would get a laptop and like grade their clips by colour, and the greens would go in first, and then so like we'd get to the next spot and that section would be like all the clips would be in the timeline, and we were loving it. We were absolutely loving it. And I think for me personally as well, like the boys would joke and like call me dad, because I'd be like organising everything.
Right.
But it was like me almost transitioning into that next phase of my life, like parenthood or whatever. It was cool, I've done that bit. And it was so nice as well because, and we got to work with Alex Rankin, which was just like amazing. Like whatever, like we would make our own videos as we went, but then when we had the budget to get Alex in as well, it was just like, mint. We just ride and he just makes us look really, really good. Like Alex just has this way of like being in a corner and you don't even know he's got his camera on and something's happening, and then that's just like the best clip of a video and you don't even know he got it, and he's just captured the vibe so mint. And so that was just like the icing on the cake for us, like get him to watch back our work that he'd done as well.
Where did the whole sort of 50-1 thing sort of fit into this sort of transition? Obviously you've been with, Santa Cruz, then moved on to Cannondale, you've done your racing, you're moving on to other projects. You've got sort of the 51 crew, you've got products, you've got all sorts going on. Like, how did that work?
That was during the racing time. We sort of initially started that, just selling like T-shirts for the fun of it, to be honest. But then like the YouTube channel evolved, and that it felt like it gave us all a platform where we didn't need to be on the same brand, and that was really cool when we did the Cannondale thing, because we were over here, Luce, Sam and Craig were still on Santa Cruz, but we could come together and like do this thing together, and that was still our common ground, where it didn't matter that we weren't on the same team or bike or whatever, and we had this sort of thing together.
Because it seems that obviously like Josh Bryceland, the brand is connected to both Cannondale and 51 as almost two separate entities. Is there much go between the two?
Yeah, I feel like 50-1 has its value to the brands because it's got that like youthful thing and the young following and just like the carefree approach. So it does. I feel like it's a valuable asset for all of us to be a part of, because brands also want to be a part of it, and we're attached to it, and it just helps the whole ecosystem of us just being bike riders and being affiliated with it one way or another. And it's really fun. We've had a lot of fun with it, and it has provided us a lot of opportunities, and we still do get opportunities through it. So I
was going through the YouTube channel, churning out big numbers. Like the videos are sort of, they go back a long way, and they're all sort of, they've got a very unique style to them as well, which is always tell what's coming out.
I know, it's interesting you say that, and I feel like we were sort of ahead of the curve a little bit. We were in there early with the YouTube thing, and we were doing our own style, but then we never really. I've sort of dabbled, and I would like to do more with it, but the vlogging thing, we never jumped on that bandwagon. And we actively mocked it initially because of all the clickbait, this and that, thinking, it's never going to take off. And then now you look at it and like we've been left over here, and our numbers have, seriously dropped off from what we were. And the vlogs are taking over things, and I watch a variety of different vlogs, and like it's so interesting to see how fast that online landscape can change into it. It's like,
and is that something you guys really are starting to pay attention to, and you actively looking to do something to fill that gap maybe?
Personally for my own brand and that side of things, totally. But Luce is like hardcore, and he loves filming a project over a few months.
Okay.
And
put out one banger.
Like the longer form
totally,
stuff.
And that's the longer form, and that's his art and his expression, and he thrives off it, and it really brings the best out in him. Like he'll go up the woods and spend a day trying to do one thing and just, you know, pummel himself, or get it first go. But he's such a grafter, and he loves that long form thing, and you know,
just keep going and going.
And that's his jam, and I respect it so much.
Yeah.
But then I also love like how these days you can go and cover an event doing the vlog thing. Like I was watching all the X Games stuff.
Oh yeah.
And like there's the coverage of Best Whip and Quarter Pipe and all that. And I'm interested because of the Starks and follow Colby Raha and Patrick Evans, who won the Whip. And then like see the results and see the thing, but then you go on their individual channels and you get their weekend counter of everything what's going on and and it's like, what a lovely way to have a window into someone's
that behind the scenes thing.
Totally. It is a behind the scenes thing, and it isn't polished, and
it's like super personal, right?
Totally, like this as well, isn't it?
Like Bernard's and Jack Moyers and
exactly. That's the one thing I don't do as much of in the mountain bike world. I sort of look for whatever reason beyond that, or in it, different things. But I like watch a crazy one like Will Survives. Is this like kid who has gone off grid and just doing mad stuff in the bush, like
like conifers, but like
totally like that sort of stuff. But it's mint entertainment, isn't it?
How about those sort of other projects that other people are running? You know, like Slice of British Pie. You know, Joe Barnes just released was it the Fair? I forget the name of it, but
the Rare Folk.
The Rare Folk. I was going to call it the Fair Folk, but it wasn't. Like you get involved in those. You know, again, it's a good bit of branding, but it's also the look like wild fun as well.
Totally, and I think like that's like so nice to see when Joe reached out, like to feel that sort of desire to cross-pollinate with us all. It's like we're all out here doing the same thing. We've all got our own like pockets of followings, but like let's band together and do something fun. And it's just mint, innit? It's like what a nice. Yeah, that was so good. Joe's whole video, so quirky and
right?
So mint.
Well, he just got such a different take, right?
Yeah.
Which is what makes it so lovable and
that's it, refreshing.
Appealing. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you've kind of seen that shift in the spectrum from being a pro racer through to what you're doing now. How would you describe, I suppose, like what's a usual week for you now as a pro? It's quite different, I'm guessing.
Tractor driving,
yeah. Well, there's a whole other chapter we haven't gone into yet. But during lockdown in 2020, me and my wife bought a woodland near home, and it's where I've got like pictures of me riding there when I was 12. You know, early 10, just getting into my racing. It was like our local downhill track, and it was just like this rocky single track through an old quarry, and then the odd jump got built there and stuff. And then in lockdown was a load of Miver with litter, and someone got airlifted, and it sounded like they were going to fence it all off and shut it down. And we contacted the estate, and were like, it was owned by a huge estate in the area, and we ended up buying it off them. Long story short.
No way.
So then through the lockdown period, I was like, right, let's make a bike park. Travel's never going to be the same again. Like I really struggled to see the world getting back to normal. I was like, this is us now. Yeah. With like everything's changed and it's never going back. It just seemed so crazy, didn't it? It was so hard to know what was coming. Yeah. But to see the local scene boom in such a way, it was like, we can't lose this spot. This has been so like instrumental for my career. Yeah. So then like a completely new chapter then began for me. I was like, right, I'm going to build a bike park. I was like, I need a digger. Like, right, we've got a digger, let's start. And then we were getting a bit of like budget from brands like Gyro. Gyro wanted a video, so we built a line for them on the budget of that. And then Luce needed a video for his Wheel It Up edit for Wheel It Up, so we got some budget for that and built him some tracks. And then Trail Shark, a shovel company, a friend of mine we did one for them, and then Luce did another for Marzocchi, and it was just like that whole thing's been going on for the last few years, which has been like its whole world of learning, machinery and groundwork and
tractors.
land management and tractors, all the necessary things, and just like living out every kid's dream.
Yeah, right.
And
Cool.
getting a taste for like just grafting, like as well. Like I've been managing, like doing what I need to on the riding side of things, but then also like trying to like forward that project and progress and do whatever that looks like on a weekly basis.
Has that been a bit of a refreshing change then from your earlier career, where, you know, like where you were so focused on racing and then riding, and now to have something it's completely different?
Yeah, and it's been like mint. I've got like a few hours at the end of the day, and I cannot wait to ride my bike.
Yeah.
Rather than like I've been riding all day.
Kind of done with it.
Yeah. So it's like even more relit that fire for the bikes for me, and then taking me, just giving me like a new perspective on what it's like for your average person who doesn't get to ride all day every day.
Yeah.
That's like a real job, right?
Totally.
Lots of red tape, I'm guessing, as well, with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of skirted around all that stuff. So.
Well, I guess you're the owner, right?
yeah.
Should probably move on from this.
Yeah, but been loads of learning itself, and like getting to know the neighbours in the local area, and then also been organising an event which we're running in September.
Yes, you got an Enduro coming.
Yeah. So, and again, like, so from travelling, so like spending most of the year travelling and being on the road, and like the community being this travelling circus,
Yeah.
to like being home for a good few years, rooting down, like getting into the local community properly, learning all the local farmers, because we're going over the land for that. And
Okay.
like life has changed so much since 2020. So like that, since the first year on Cannondale was 2019, and we just travelled like crazy, did so much stuff. Then from then till now, been like way more home based and like doing like such a variety of stuff. It's been amazing, it really has.
Has the local sort of farming community then been receptive to it, or is there a bit of friction, or has it been easy?
The very first door I knocked on, and I always made like the biggest effort. Like when I started, it was 4 years ago. 2020 was when we started organising the Enduro, and like I had my little Defender, and I put my wax jacket on and my wellies, and went and knocked on a farmer's door. I was like, I better look the part. Like, and the guy was like, I've spent my whole life trying to keep mountain bikes off my land. Why on earth would I let you come across it with an event? And I was like, oh no, this is going to be really, really challenging. And that was day one. I was like, this is going to be an uphill battle. But then they've been amazing. It's changed. It's been a roller coaster, and there's been friction. Don't get me wrong, but the majority has just been like so welcoming and really, really good.
That's
and
so
met
cool.
some like this local bloke, Colin. I called him the other week just to check on a few bits, and went past his barn and poked my head in, and him and his mate were unloading a bale, like little square bales by hand, and we're both like probably 50s, and we were like unloading into a hay barn, a hay loft above like where his sheep were, and this old bale trailer was like rickety and knackered, and one of them was stood on my bales chucking them up and was holding my bales, and and then they were like, oh, we just needed a strong young lad, just jump up here. So then I spent like an hour unloading these bales with these two lads, just listening to them chat, and just got a mega workout. I was like, right, I've got to feed both of them, and it's just me. And then the more you unloaded, the lower the trailer was getting. I was throw them higher up, and it was so good. I was like, this is mint. I love this. Nice. Just like. Ended up doing like a few hours work with these lads, listening to their stories and just being part of the local scene. I was like, this is it.
And so they're way more accepted now of having a race there.
Yeah. Well, we go across like 30 different landowners.
No way.
So many.
30.
30. So I've really had my work cut out.
Yeah.
And I had like my dream route, plan A, and we're on like F, you know. But I'm still buzzing.
It'll still
with
be
it.
good.
Yeah, it will. It will be amazing. And with you lose one bit, but another bit turns up, and it's all just slotted into place just right.
Quite the puzzle.
Oh my goodness. And driving around in my wax jacket, knocking on doors, doing my little sales pitch. I'm like, now I'm a door-to-door salesman. Like, what's going on?
So life as a pro really has changed.
Yeah, drastically.
Oh my God.
I know.
You said about how that's maybe shifted the perspective and really lit that fire to ride again.
Yeah.
So obviously we saw you compete hardline this year.
Yeah.
That's maybe not your average sort of race to kind of get back into it.
I know. I don't really do things by halves, and I'm quite intense when I set about something. But it was last year Warner got in touch,
right?
And I was like, yeah, why not? And then it didn't go ahead last year, and I was kind of glad because I'd ridden everything on track, but with the wind and the rain, it was just like a recipe. And Bernard was riding the track like it was fine. Just thinking, yeah, that's not for me. So I was really relieved when we did make that call last year.
Yeah. I guess at that point you probably hadn't raced a huge amount in the run-up either, right?
I hadn't done much at all.
Yeah.
Not downhill anyway.
We'd just had our son Sylvester about 7 weeks beforehand, so I hadn't had much sleep. I didn't have a downhill bike. I had the Jekyll with triple clamps on it, and I'd ridden that probably 2 or 3 times, just like on local hills, nothing like downhill tracks. Just really lacked preparation. So this year, knowing I was entering, being able to get the downhill bike set up and we got like 7 days of riding in before it, which seemed so much, having not done downhill for ages. And it's really, you know, they say it's just like riding a bike, but doing downhill laps for me, I've done that a lot. So doing it 1 day of downhill, I'm like, yeah, I do this. I know how to do this, even 8 years on.
So it really took you back in terms of muscle memory and all that
Totally, and just like repeating a track and like changing my lines on the fly and like all that stuff. And I loved it. Like going back to Llangollen and just like doing a day's uplift, just with the boys, taking insights, taking silly lines, trying stuff, mixing it up, and like tweaking my bike as I went and getting Matt dialed in and just playing with stuff. I was like, this is like an old friend I've not seen for years, but we're just getting on straight away. You know, nice. It was mint.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Was the whole hardline event, you know, you said when you were racing downhill in the earlier days, you know, like everyone was there having a laugh. You'd go out on a Sunday, have a party, and things maybe sort of got a bit more serious as time went on, maybe sort of lacked that sort of the fun element. Is the hardline week, the package, a bit more harking back to those early days of downhill, or is it actually a bit more serious than sort of the social media clips maybe let on?
No, you've hit the nail on the head. It's like Red Bull, for one, want it to be fun. Like, they make a great event for the athletes. They just do. Like, if you're at a UCI event, it's about the event, it's about the rules, it's about their format. At Hardline, it feels like it's about the athletes. They just look after you. You get like a gift pack on arrival. You know, you're staying in the house with the boys, being silly, plying you with free booze every night. Like, meals all sorted for you.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a completely different feeling. And I think it needs to be because the track is so intense.
And you guys are the spectacle, right? That's what everyone's there to watch.
Yeah, totally.
Without riders, it's nothing.
And like when you get there, you walk the track, and that's always the hardest bit, really, because you walk the track and you're thinking, oh, it all just looks mental. And then you start to ride it, and each day, it's really, the way they do it's amazing. You start at the bottom of the track, and you start on the road gap landing, and you do, it's really technical and hard.
And did they like tell you how to, do they run the schedule in terms of how you practice then?
Pretty much. And the weather dictates it slightly.
Okay.
But they don't take you to the top and go,
off you go.
They just don't, because people would just get hurt.
Yeah.
So you start and you get the bottom jumps first, and you have the afternoon on them.
Yeah.
And then you go up to the 90s. Weirdly, you do the 90s and the road gap second, but they are actually like, as far as honestly safe, as far as safety and stuff, like them jumps, because the takeoffs are so mellow, they're like really chill. You're not getting booked.
Just gotta go super
It's
fast.
just a ski jump. You just Eddie the Eagle, just pull on the bars and just fly. And then you work your way up, and each day is fairly intense. So
it's pretty mad to say that the 90s are the easy bit.
I know, it's technical, man.
Yeah.
The track is technical. And there is a break between like that drop, the big heavy landing drop at the end of the top section, to the 90s. That whole section's like, for me, it was a bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not insane. It's like it'd be a technical national track.
Right.
Like, it is technical, but that bit's kind of a break. And then you've got the 90s, which are also just like speed tuck and pull. But like the top section and the bottom section are insanely tech. Like, it is technical stuff.
It looks hard on camera.
Yeah.
So I can only
Just
imagine
saying something.
Yeah.
I can only imagine riding it, and especially with the Welsh weather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, the whole week itself just like wild. So you kind of need to like have that like
That's all
relax.
builds.
Yeah, the relaxedness when you're not riding, just chill and enjoy and forget about that thing you've got to do in a few days, because we'll deal with that when we get to it.
Imminent death.
Yeah.
What was your take on the whole Canyon Gap thing at Red Bull at Hardline this year? Because it caused quite a stir. Probably quite good marketing in the run up for the event, because everyone was like, "What the fuck's going on with this?" And then obviously, what was your take on the whole?
I saw the pictures of it, and whilst it was getting built, we were getting like trickled a few like leaked images, because Matt Hockenall, Dave's brother, was doing the scaffolding, helping build it. So he was sending us pictures, and we was like, all like stood on it, weird angles stuff, Snapchat screenshots and like random stuff. So it looks a bit spicy. And then you saw the finish thing, and you're like, ooh. Like, proportionately, it just, like I was saying about the 90 footers and the mellow takeoffs and stuff, it looked quite a
kicky,
sharp
wasn't it?
thing. But then the day before we left, the videos of the Jim crashing on it and the boys just making it and stuff, or the picture got leaked of him in the head in it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what am I doing? I've got a 1-year-old. Like, am I really going to go and do... I've done all this prep. The bike's been painted. All this work's gone in.
Yeah.
From me and from other people at the brands I represent.
Yeah, everyone's invested.
Everyone's invested. And I was like,
back.
I'm doing it. Like, I'm going to go and do that jump. Like, that's what's happening. Yeah. But, like, am I stupid? Like, am I, just having them little internal dialogues thinking,
Did that sort of hark back to 2016 then, when you were...
A little bit, I'm like, I'm back here, and it was like, it's 2024, it's 2014, I hurt my foot, so I'm like, am I in this 10-year cycle? Is this going to be an injury?
Yeah.
Did it like going deep? And then the next night before we left, I got in bed and I got a text from the WhatsApp group. Hardline riders, we were all already in the group, and Grace, who runs the event, saying we've decided to take the jump out, and literally felt like I'd won the race. I was like, fantastic! Oh, that's so nice! Like, relief, loving it, texting everyone. Funny thing, like the week leading up to the race, when all the pictures are going around, like people I haven't spoke to for years, sending me the picture of the jump. Like, do you think I haven't seen it?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, I've seen it. What do you want me to say? I'm going to go and do it. Stop it. Leave it. And then, like, that was a big relief. And then get there, and then you realise you still have to do the rest of the track.
It all brings everything,
which is pretty funny. And then, seeing it in person, it looked so on. I think it was like the 0.5 iPhone angle from further up the thing. Everything made it look crazy.
Yeah.
And I think probably knowing we didn't have to do it made it look super doable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I made adjusted the lip, and it all just didn't seem. The energy of actual thing in person seemed way doable.
Wow, okay.
But it's easy to say that sat here not having done it. So
Well, I guess.
don't take my word for it.
But it's on for next year, right?
Yeah, I think we've done like a 5-year deal.
Okay.
What with the
And
scaffolders?
honestly, after
Oh, with Hardline.
yeah, with
Yeah,
scaffolders, the planning permission, the whole.
Wow.
Because loads of things, loads of factors came into it.
Right, okay.
So there you go, mountain biking growing through and helping the building trade. Who'd have thought, right?
Totally.
You want to get a contract with your digger.
So you mentioned about having your son, who's 1 now, is that right?
Yeah.
Has that changed your mindset when it comes to doing stuff like this, to taking those risks? Not doing podcasts, obviously, which you should be pretty safe here. But I suppose just that risk taking and stuff like that. Do you have a different approach, do you think?
I do. And it's really weird how it's affected me.
Okay.
How he's affected me.
Yeah.
In that, like, it's really motivated me.
Oh, cool.
Like I was saying, in 2016, I just wanted to withdraw. And then through lockdown and everything, when it was like, sweet, I'm going to just do the bike park stuff, and like, maybe this will be my transition out of my professional career.
Because did you think it was genuinely going to be that?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I was like, travel's off, and, you know, we'll see. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
But you're always thinking about that as a professional. You're like, you know, but what's happening?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay current as long as I can, but I'm not going to cling on to something which isn't worthwhile or feeling right. I've never been able to follow a path which doesn't feel right. It just doesn't. Like when I stopped racing downhill, I had 2 years left of my contract with Santa Cruz for the best money I'd ever been on.
Yeah.
I'd only done 1 year of that deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going. And everyone around me is like, you must be stupid because you've spent your whole career getting to this salary, doing your apprenticeship, working your way up.
Yeah.
Now you've got it, you're buggering off and you don't want it, you're mad. But I just wasn't able to do that, you know. But then, like, Sylvester coming along, and I read the comments here and there, and like when we drop the Formula fork, people are like, oh, Ratboy realising having children's expensive. Like, yeah, I know, it proper made me chuckle. And like, not gonna lie, obviously monetarily there's a motivation, but just like for myself and for him and like a legacy, whatever, it's like, I have a son. I need to do as much as I can personally, on every level. I want to fulfill myself so I can be the best dad I can for him.
Yeah.
And like achieve as much as I can and do, and like, it's crazy. It's really motivated me. And that's not, I thought I'd just want to withdraw and be with him.
Okay.
You know, I thought that will probably be me, hermit crab with family for here on out.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm trying to get away from him. I want to take him everywhere. Like him and Jess have been coming to every event I've been going to.
That's cool.
And like, whilst he's young and not in school or whatever, and he can travel, I don't want to miss a minute of like him growing up. But also I'm super motivated. So like, really unexpected but beautiful outcomes from it, you know.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Should we move on to bikes then? That obviously, you know, you spent a lot of time on a V10 and then you sort of jumped onto Canada, which is sort of and we can't talk a huge amount about sort of proto downhill bikes, but as a transition, right? And then the bike that you did hardline on, you know, a Jekyll, which is slightly modified and all that sort of stuff. Quite an interesting difference. And, you know, it's 10 years or so since you were racing on a big bike back to it. What's sort of the transition been like?
Yeah, well, I'll skip back again a little bit, because when I signed to Cannondale in 2019, their latest and greatest model was the Habit, the last iteration of the Habit, and I think it was the first Habit. And where I was at at that time, I only wanted to ride a medium bike, so it felt like a BMX, because that was where all my influence was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And during a trip to Portugal, filming a video at a bike park my friend had built a line at, Nick shipped a downhill bike to me and was like, we need a video for something internally, please jump on this and do a morning with Alex and get some clips. It's only for internal use, we just need you on this bike. So I got off my medium habit, like 140 trail bike.
Pretty dinky then.
Yeah, dinky. Onto this downhill bike, which was so ahead of its time. It was massive. It's roughly, it's an XL.
Huh.
It's an XL. And going from a trail bike to a downhill bike of the same size.
So is that the same bike as we're talking about now? Yeah, okay.
And getting on that thing, I was like, I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like, it's insane. It's so big. And later in the year, I ended up going to Pila, and I had it in my van and rode it down a mountain. And I was like, I get what
This is
they've
where it
done
works.
here. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, get the thing moving, and it is unbelievable. Like, try and play around on little jumps designed for a trail bike, and it just feels like a double-decker coach with no power steering. But take it down a mountain, and it shines.
Yeah.
And I filmed a part out there on it, and I was just like, holy, that is unbelievable. Fast forward a few years, and Ben was... We're not allowed to ride that bike anymore. Leave that bike at home. It's like, that's a shame, but sound. And then it was like, that bike's okay to ride again. So I was like, revisit it, like, and I've also gone to a normal size bike now. Like, I ride a large, and across the board I ride larges.
Yeah.
Apart from my little trail bike I use for jumping and playing on, but generally I ride a large. So to have a more less of a gap,
A smoother transition to the big one.
exactly. Yeah. And being out and back, there's a lot of adjustment you can do within the bike itself, being a prototype. And when I first rode it, everything was slammed, and then doing my hardline
Sort of progressed a bit.
yeah, stretched everything out. Thought I'll go the other way.
Yeah.
And it just got better. And I was like, I can't believe what's happening. And then it's made me reflect on my time as a downhill racer. And I think I was very adverse to change during my career.
I was going to ask, because we spoke when we were setting all this up, you sort of mentioned how into testing and stuff you are now.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you were as into it back then.
No, I hated it. I was like, I'll do it. But test days generally just meant competing against Steve and Greg, because they were always timed.
Yeah.
And there's you either first or last. You know what I mean?
And those two are really competitive.
Super competitive.
I
and
did
there was
a pub
also
quiz
some
with Steve the other week. I couldn't believe how into
so
it he was.
competitive,
isn't he?
So
It's insane.
and Rob would usually be at testing, so the boss is there. Everyone's trying to do the performance,
God.
and there was always some horrendous forfeit you had to do if you were slowest.
Oh.
So like testing was like a World Cup. It was super intense.
But with consequences.
Yeah, and I was just always like, well, the bike works, and all I need from my bike is for it to be the same. Like,
Okay.
I just want to know how my bike's going to react. This was my mindset back then. If I know what it's going to do when I hit that thing, that's as good as it doing the best it could possibly do or other. I just want to know it. So I always just stuck with that. And when bikes used to grow, and they just grow the front end, your rear centre just got further back, and it was harder to corner them for me, because your front wheel's just getting further away from you and less weight on it. Now, that growing things in both directions with all modern bikes, just like a game changer. Like, let's grow some chainstays and have some amazing bikes. But that was never a done thing. So, like, yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like if I had stayed racing and had an open mind in that sort of thing, it would have been interesting. But I haven't, and I'm excited to be in a position to just ride stuff and feel the difference from it.
Especially with a brand like Canada, right?
Totally.
They're known for their innovation and
totally. I'm all about trying it.
That's
and,
cool.
And when we did the formula testing for the suspension down a local track, I was like, right, I know I can do. I did a run and like timed it, and I was like, I know I can just do that run on repeat. Like I'll waver half a second maybe, but like I'll just do that run. And I did that run like 12 times the first day, and we changed something every lap. And just feeling how it was easier or harder or different to hold a line or cornered better or cornered worse. And like I'm doing the exact same speed and my bike's reacting like this. It was so fun to just go through that process. And like when we used to test with Santa Cruz, it was like every run I was risking my life trying to go as fast as I could to beat both of them two.
Which isn't easy.
No, which isn't easy. And it was like I wasn't testing, I was just racing, and we were changing stuff every time. You know what I mean?
This is how I feel when I go riding with Rob. I ain't testing, I'm trying to hang onto a wheel. Yeah, you're on Formula now as well, obviously, and you know they're a brand that have got some interesting sort of tunable tech, like which we don't really see on production forks for punters.
Yeah,
with the CSTs?
Yeah,
that you can
CTS
drop in
valve.
and,
Yeah,
CTS. Sorry, and then the Neos foam things.
They're
quite like Cannondale, quite an interesting company potentially to work with, I guess.
Totally, they're coming at it from a slightly different angle, and they're a small company, so they're a bit more agile. But they're like. Yeah, but they're just not trying to copy anything. They're doing their own thing, and like I said, getting back into this space of like enjoying testing and trying different stuff, and not being like, oh, I'm just trying to go as fast as I possibly can. Like I've not got time for this or whatever. That old mindset I had, like working with them has been so much fun. Like. Trying all these different ideas and stuff we've got, and going to the ends of the spectrum, like, oh, we've shimmed that way too much now, we'll have to come back a little bit, or that's way too soft, and then working your way into a sweet spot. And what a fun process. I'm really, really enjoying it.
How did the whole Formula thing come about? And are we going to see the stuff that you're working on with suspension, is that going to help sort of mould where Formula suspension might end up going?
My CTS valve with Formula is, to answer that first, is one of their existing valves, which is at the most supple end of their spectrum, because the valve, simply put, just has like more holes for the fluid to go through, but then it's got a bigger shim stack. So like when you really hit it hard, the shims like stand up a bit. Okay. When you're pushing it, like the first bit of the travel is super soft. Anyway, so yeah, it's totally available.
Okay, so you can buy a Josh Bryceland.
You can get you can get my cartridge,
cool.
Which is mint. I've never had anything like that, and it is ace.
It's very cool.
But the whole Formula thing came about through one of them cake electric motorbikes. I got sent for a little bit. I've got a Sur on what I ride at home in my garden, just for like a bit of a play, and they'd seen I'd been riding that and messaged me asking if I wanted to try their bike, and then they sent me one which Sam Pilgrim had, and I think it came straight from him, and it was absolutely knackered.
Like, horror, right?
Oh my gosh, bearings were missing. It just exploded.
Oh my God.
The linkage was bent. It was absolutely caned, this poor bike. And so that was quite the experience. I just had to like strip and rebuild that before I got to really ride it. But the brakes on it were insane, and I was like, I've never felt brakes this good on anything. The lever feel was just amazing. I was just like, got on it and just did a stoppie on it straight away. I was like, read on the master cylinder, I was like, Formula. I was like, mega. So then I got in touch with them. I was like, I want to try their stuff out because this is mint.
Yeah.
And that's where the relationship began, like a total like accident really. Just like got that bike, saw that and was like, oh, I'm gonna have to get in touch with them. And then they were like buzzing to hear from me. I was like, mint, well, send me some stuff, I'll get it on my bike. And then ended up riding it at Hardline last year, and I was like, it just doesn't feel right. Like, I know I need my bike really stiff to take the impacts, but it's still so supple. But I've got all this pressure in it, but it still feels really soft. I was like, is this right? And then I like went up the hill and didn't bottom it out. I was like, it's amazing. I was like, it's doing exactly what I want. But like, it's so easy to overlook the small brands when, you know, the two main brands dominate, don't they, the suspension world. And I was like, a bit in my head, like, I know the brakes are amazing because I've had previous experience with them, but will the suspension be any good? Like, I'll have a go and see. Yeah. And I was like, just blown away by it. I was like, this is mint.
So cool.
So yeah, it's a nice little opportunity what's opened up.
Yeah. Could you see yourself doing sort of more development stuff for them and other brands maybe?
Yeah, I would love that role, to be honest. Like, it'd just mean like riding a lot and like noting the little changes and finding them things. And I feel fairly tuned into that sort of stuff. So yeah, that would be a potential future pathway, and it's kind of naturally evolving a little bit. So we'll see where that goes.
We could pay you as a freelance tester, can't we?
Yeah. We've actually got a bike test that we need doing for 3 weeks' time.
Good. I'll stick it in with that.
I suppose we need to start wrapping things up a little bit, but before we started, we talked potentially around, I guess, plans for you and racing going forward. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that looks alongside Cannondale, what you're going to be doing with those guys?
Yeah, so I think Hardline, well, before Hardline I went to Ireland just to get a bit of like time against the clock.
Oh yeah, you raced the national.
Yeah, I went to a national there, and I was like, where a better place to go? Like, the scene is booming. Yeah. But you know, the riders coming out of there, Ronan, Ocean, Jake, they kill it. Yeah. And Chris Cummins, it's such a good scene. There's so many. There's so, and so we went over there and did a race, and I was like, this was a mint weekend. I really enjoyed, like I said, training at Llangollen and doing uplift days. And then going to a race, I was like, that was fun as well. I well enjoyed that. Then I was like, Hardline will be the real test because that's going to be like intense. So I'll not get too excited before I go and do that. Went and did Hardline and came away just like, what an amazing week. And like my fitness really held me back in my runs. I was like, did a full run in practice. I was like, I've got this. Like a full run. Like, my body's conditioned. I've done 7 days riding. Like, I can do this. And then like went against the clock in seeding. And I was like, oh yeah, that was considerably more intense than a practice run. Full lap. But I think I was 10th and I was 11th, but my splits were like 9th, and then I dropped off a little bit at the bottom. And then race day, I was like, gunned the first section, 30 seconds the first split was. I got to there and I was like, oh, I'm sort of there. I was like tired. Oh God. I was like, there's some big stuff coming.
Yeah, right. Not
so I'll just like back off and like get through them. So I'll get through to the 90s and then I'll turn it back on again for the bottom section. And I must have been holding my breath because I did the 90s. I was like, I'm even more gassed, and I've just been chilling to recover. And then I started making mistakes, and I was like, oh no. And then finished and like just really enjoyed it. And like what I was saying in Lenzerheide when it was like disappointing run for Josh, there was none of that because I'm so far from. No one had any expectations, so it was lovely. I was like, that's cool. Regardless of my fitness holding me back, like that was so much fun. And then just enjoyed being in the race scene. And obviously everybody reads like their Instagram comments, and I try and like reply when I get the time, but the majority of my following was earned when I was racing. Like that is what people followed me for, and there's so much positive stuff coming, like we're loving seeing you back on my bike, da, 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 da. And it was regardless of where I finished, which was so like, people weren't like, oh, unlucky. They were just like, meant to see you riding your bike, da, da, da. I was like, that's so nice to feel that on like a no expectation basis, you know. And I was like, flipping, I really enjoyed it too, so let's see where this can go. And then I was like, why don't I just enter Leger? Like, it's only around the corner. Just done a load of riding. Brain's going.
Well,
I'm like,
eight days riding now?
yeah, I know. I'm just like in turbo ADHD brain. I'm like, yeah, let's just go do that now, man. I'll just enter that. And then it didn't quite pan out. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds. I'm not saying I'm going to go do a full season, and I don't even know what it looks like for me with future changes to be able to get points or trade team. If trade team's a requirement, it'll be a bit out of the question, because one thing, another, bike development, whatever, it takes time, doesn't it? And all these things are maybes in the future. But yeah, well, like I said, we'll see what happens, and I'm excited.
Do you think like the whole sort of invitational sort of race scene might sort of bloom a little bit? You know, there's a lot of chat about the World Cup and how the UCI are running it, but you know, things like Hardline, there's obviously Hardline in Australia.
Yeah,
maybe there'll be more sort of things like that. Is that maybe more your vibe?
Yeah, it is, but I don't think anything will ever replace the World Cup. I think like Hardline is a fantastic thing and it's its own thing, and I don't see any competition between the two. I feel like the UCI World Cup will always be that, and Hardline will always be that. And yeah, I think I'm probably gonna do, if I get the invite off Rob, I've already slipped in his DMs, but if I can get to Tassie, I'll do Tassie and Wales next year.
Nice.
There's no plan to add another stop next year. I think it'll be the year after that. So that's progressing in its own thing. And if I could dabble in a bit of World Cup as well, it'd just be lovely to go and see what that was like. And I know I need to do a lot of work on my fitness before I can just rock up and have like a decent attempt at it. I think it was a blessing in disguise I didn't get in this year, honestly.
Okay.
Because I was just getting giddy. Like, you don't just have 8 years out and then just stroll in and qualifying. It probably would have lit a fire under me, but it would have also been
quite eye-opening, maybe?
Yeah, it would have been, but I think just by my time, get fit. And I could have injured myself not being fit racing them tracks, because they're long and brutal. So it probably was a blessing in disguise. But yeah, the future's bright for the whole sport.
I was going to say, do you think the World Cup's in a good space at the moment?
I do. I think the World Cup's in a great space. I think, as I was, a lot of people get scared of change. And I think there is a lot of change going on. But even though I don't subscribe or pay for the live feed, I still follow as much as I can of it. And I love all the digitised bloke stood there whilst he's on track. He's got his... the video of him doing his stuff.
The
show of it.
Yeah.
Like, it needed that.
It's a bit more Supercross, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
And all the teams, like Joe Breeden's team, they had the Supercross looking
the
polo shirts with the sponsors on, walking the tracks, all uniform. I'm like, that is amazing. Like, this is such a positive taking from these other sports. And like, it's insane. World Cup's crazy. It's such an amazing thing. And
it's still quite young, really, in the scheme of things, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And how much it's changed since I was doing it. Yeah. Like, that was what was so funny being at the race in Leger. I was like, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. So it's just a bike race, but like, dress it up and make it fancy and make it elite for sure. Just like we do need what we talked about, them feeder series. 100% we need them. Like the talent needs a set route into World Cup, but there shouldn't be 400 riders on course chewing it up. Like that's too many. Like the top guys are there to do this thing and like preserve that track as best you can, because it's dangerous enough as it is. They're pushing it to the absolute limit. When the track's getting that much traffic and changing that much, and you know, it's only making it more dangerous, isn't it? Really, that was what was beautiful about Hardline. Was 30 was riding it.
That's crazy.
There's a bit more consistency in the track.
Oh, there was no braking bumps because it was just like we were all the people riding were at a certain level. And I know they are at World Cup. I'm not saying they're not at World Cup. It's just the sheer volume. But like,
you're not getting ruts pushed out.
They're not getting pushed out. The ruts were just established beautifully, and the track by race day was like in its prime. It was just mint. I was like, wow. Like I can see the whole appeal to the 30 in the final thing, but it's just a shame there's 400 in the practice day or whatever. You know. Yeah. They've got to sift that down, but so these things don't happen overnight, but it does seem like we're taking the right steps.
It's an 8-year deal, isn't it? So you kind of hope they're gonna
what are we at, 2 or 3?
2, isn't it?
2.
Yeah, 2, so we got a while. So, it should be
looking good, isn't it?
Well, fingers crossed we get to see you there.
Nice one.
I know we sort of said we're going to wrap it up, but I did have sort of one question I wanted to ask. You've done the racing thing, you've done the video projects, the sort of the social media, the more sort of like the fun thing. What riders do you look at now in both spheres, in terms of racing and in terms of outside of racing? Who do you sort of follow on Instagram? Who's doing some cool stuff? Who catches your eye?
Loads of different riders. Loads. I think from the downhill stuff, I've got so many friends still in it that I like. You know, I love following along with Brooke and Phil Atwill, Win Blenky. You know, but my era, my generation of riders, like I just love seeing how they're getting on, and I'm like feeling the pain if they've not qualified or buzzing if they do and all that. And obviously, like Piron, when I was sort of on my way out, he was on his way in, like making a name for himself. And Loic Bruni, like, you know, this man's amazing. But and Piron, so different, but also so incredible. Like, such a big fan of Piron, like, literally blown me away the last 2 races. Amazing, isn't he? Yeah. Amazing. As was Bruni at the beginning of the season, and then Ronan coming through. Yeah. You know, there was just so much happening in the racing sphere. Yeah.
And they're all so different.
They're all so different. And Dak, love Dak with his high bars and his long hair. And I'm like, yeah, man. And then, like, on the free ride side of things, I went to Vero's jam a week after Hardline at her place. And that Edgar Briol Edgar is a young French lad from he rides for Commental. I've never seen anyone go so high off a flipping jump on a bike. He's insane.
He just boosts more
bro than it just doesn't make sense. He just goes up. He was at Hardline as well, but free ride's his thing. Man, he's unbelievable at it. And then Lucas Schaefer was there as well, a German lad who rides for Radon. Nico Vink described him so well at a Fest Series a few years. He's like, isn't it pretty the way he rides? Nico said. I was like, that's incredibly pretty. Like, he's just so like cool. Delicate, and he was doing this mad transfer across the whole first section and landing like really deep the first time he hit it, and just was still smooth though he missed the landing. I'm like, guy's just a wizard. And then Vero's fella Sam Hodgson's like absolutely kills it. Then there's just so many. I could keep listing names. I love them all. It's mint. There's such a wide pool to like with the sport going through that big boom and you get to see everything.
Yeah.
And like freeride has the full spectrum, racing has there's so many characters in the sport, isn't there? And there's so many styles.
Yeah.
So healthy. Really inspiring.
We were down in Braga earlier this year for Scalper launch, and obviously Matera SL, and obviously Charlie Aldridge was there, World Cup cross country racer. But you guys were like
that again. Forgot about the XC thing. Like even Matt's seen now, they're all styling it up, and Charlie kills it.
On
Charlie
tracks.
I know. Charlie was rapid.
Yeah, good fun.
There's so much cross pollination, and there's a lad Bjorn Riley who's like in the juniors, and he's amazing on a BMX. He'll like bar spin, manny 180, do all this, and then he's winning cross country world champs in under 23 or whatever. It's like
unfair, isn't it?
Crazy.
Too much talent going on.
So it's mad, isn't it? And I remember like back in our day, but, you know, the XC racers raced XC, and that's what they did. The downhillers did downhill, and then you had your Cedrics and Greg. Always been a bit of a thing, but it was much rarer. It was much rarer, but like sport's healthy. It's
really
good to
good
see.
place. I guess that's a good time to
eat some cinnamon rolls. They've been sat there.
Yeah, I'm so. I've heard your tummy going.
I know.
Was that the clomping? Was it?
Wow. Right. So obviously, massive thanks to you, Josh. Thanks for coming down. It's been great to chat. Great to hear you're doing so well, and there's so many things to look forward to. Thanks to you, as ever, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Always fun.
And please keep an eye out and an ear out for the next MBUK podcast in the near future.
Thanks for having us on, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.